things people learn, probably there's no point in learning them. Because they never use them in the future. Because a lot of kids are just in school kind of puzzled as to why they're there. Like,
well, oftentimes business education today, and I see it all the time, kids come out of college, the best colleges, Wharton and Harvard and Stanford and some of the great business schools, and they'll come out and they won't have practical experience. There's too many case studies that aren't practical.
The people who are doing the work that we care about are figuring out what to do next, not following the person who told them what to do next. And the problem with most colleges is they are high school, but with more binge drinking.
The A students work for the B students, the C students run the businesses, and the D students dedicate the buildings.
The entire purpose of a good university is to give you a foundation to fail, not a foundation to get an A. And if you graduate from college with straight A's, you have to do some serious soul searching as to why you chose to spend your time doing that.
You know, we ask kids that are 16 to 18 years old to make $100,000 debt decisions when they go off to university. And they're not prepared for that. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. They just assume, okay, I'm going to pay 4 years of education at $25,000 a pop, and when I come out the other side, somehow I'll be able to pay it back.
Right.
That's not how life works anymore.
It's like the newspaper industry, right? More printing presses, more big buildings, right? Makes us look grander. We have brains that we're putting them out there. There's a point of diminishing returns in terms of what it's worth for a college education and how much debt you're willing to saddle yourself with.
I mean, it's actually kind of funny. You know, if you think of like what is education, like you're basically downloading data and algorithms into your brain, and it's actually amazingly bad in conventional education because like it shouldn't be like this huge chore. You've got you know, someone standing up there kind of lecturing at people. And they've done the same lecture 20 years in a row, and they're not very excited about it. And I mean, I hated going to school when I was a kid. It was torture.
A recent study done by the 74million.org surveyed students and asked them about their school experience. The survey found that about 7 in 10 current high school students reported feeling bored in school at least some of the time, with about 30% saying they felt bored all or most of the time. Along with this, according to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, 80% of U.S. students report feeling stressed sometimes or often, while 34% felt depression. We took to the student body to figure out the answer to these questions.
Explain your experience with stress at school and how serious has it gotten?
The stress has definitely gotten worse throughout the years with the workloads increasing, and then I'm also getting a job, just managing more things as an adult, and then schoolwork. Most of it is just like really unimportant and really doesn't help me with my daily life, so it's just a useless workload.
Just throughout the school years, it's gotten worse and worse. With the ACT, we have to take that in junior year, so we gotta do ACT tutoring, and then I have a job on top of that, and then I have social life, family matters, and then school just makes it so much worse.
When I'm stressed at school, it really makes it harder to like focus and get work done, because I'm so stressed that like I'm focused on like 10 different other things, so I can't focus on the one thing that I'm supposed to be doing.
Most of my stress comes from how much schoolwork I have, because I don't really get it done on my off days. So that's where most of my stress comes from, and it really affects my schoolwork because it just makes me want to put it off more.
Well, the past few weeks, you know, it's been right before spring break, all these tests rolling in, just one after another. I've been so stressed out. I mean, it's been hard to get the work done. You know, my mental state's just not there.
Over the past few years in high school, I felt like stress has gotten a lot worse for me and others of my classmates.
It's the worst ever. I hate it.
Would you say that school properly teaches you how to manage stress?
Definitely not.
Nope. I hate it so much.
Not at all.
Stress.
No, it does not.
So I think one way that the district has been trying to improve some mental health capacities is by getting a mental health counselor in all the high schools, so that the counseling team also has that resource available to students.
Schools today are filled with the highest stress levels ever seen before among students, and it has recently become a huge concern across the globe. According to the dictionary, stress can be defined as the degree to which you feel overwhelmed or unable to cope as a result of pressures that are unmanageable. Many students' workload, along with extracurricular activities, can build up and cause large amounts of stress. In some unimaginable cases, this stress can lead to possible self-harm situations and even suicide for some students. The number of students with stress and even self-harm issues have seen a steady increase in the last decade, and many studies believe that these issues have direct ties with school workload or anything related to stress originated from school. As these stress levels keep rising, a proper solution is becoming more and more important to lower these numbers and provide aid for any student who is struggling and experiencing stress that they cannot handle alone. The question still remains, how well are schools preparing students for adulthood currently, and how can they utilize the proper resources in order to achieve this task?
What are some things that the school could do to provide the proper resources in teaching students to manage their stress?
Probably getting better resource guides. I think counselors could be doing a lot more for the students. Probably getting different seminars or information guides just for students that need help with their time.
What are some things that the school could do to provide the proper resources in teaching students to manage their stress?
I mean, with Edge, doing more things with Edge, just kind of like putting it out there more. I feel like they just don't, they kind of just like, they address it, but they don't really like provide any help to the students to actually help them manage stress and time.
How long have you been working as a teacher at North?
This is my 6th year here at North, 11th teaching overall.
And how does the North living climate compare to other schools?
I taught at Dunbar in Lexington a while back. It's much more diverse, bigger school, but I have found, generally speaking, at North, aside from one instance particularly of just a knockdown, drag-out fight that I had in a sports writing class, that on the whole, student interactions and stuff here are much more positive than other schools that I've been to. It was a heck of a fight, though.
Who won?
Alex Palmer handily defeated
Oh,
the captain.
You know, everybody loves your neighborhood teacher, but no one wants to pony up to pay us a salary where we can survive. Well, if teaching were easy, we wouldn't have a shortage, right?
It is a symptom of the sick and fractured system of education.
I think I always had it in me to become a teacher, but I never wanted teacher pay.
We're underfunded, we have less resources, we're kind of expected to give up of our time. We're expected to go the extra mile all the time without being asked even if I can.
You know, I think that it's as important to guide students through an education as it is to help someone in the hospital who's sick or uphold the law in a courtroom.
There is a certain amount of demonization of teachers that goes on, knowing how hard we work and knowing what's actually happening in a classroom. It's hard to hear people put down your profession.
In somebody's class is the next bioscientist. In somebody's class is the next discoverer. It's so important that we renegotiate what we think about teachers.
I would say on a national level, there's too much politics involved in public education. There's too much money tied to policies and ideas about what education should be and how education should happen. There's not a lot of actual educators in that conversation, which I find extremely problematic.
If you look at the education system, the highest need students usually have the lowest, smallest amount of resources.
It is difficult, especially when you teach in communities of color,
or low-income communities, they bring a lot of trauma into the room.
If you have students arriving every day and their minds are elsewhere, they don't know where they're going to sleep at night, they're cold, they're hungry, their stomachs are growling, across the board, generally, like, they're not going to thrive.
I think when you talk to teachers, the thing that we're most frustrated with in regards to our kids is the amount of testing that they have to go through.
We are testing children to death, and we're testing teachers to death. 20 years ago, we might have spent as much as 2 weeks testing. Today, in 2015, the average number of weeks a child spends taking tests can be up to 6 weeks.
And it just seems like a reoccurring thing. It's just happening over and over again. Let's try a new test. Let's try new standards. Let's mandate them. Let's see what happens.